everybody. This is Dr. Russ Jones.
And
Are
Brad
you Brad
Kennan
Kennan?
here.
Well, I'm glad you're joining me.
Once again,
we are wide open. How are you, my friend?
I am I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. I'm good. I'm feeling like a champion.
Can you hear me,
man? Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, every day. I haven't gone to the gym since Sunday, so I'm a little out of it. Been doing some work and having some family, just some family things and stuff like that, and just is what it is.
You got to take care of you. You know what I mean? It's 1 hour a day, for gym 4 days a week, 10,000 steps a day, eat reasonably 80% of the time, and stick a fork in it.
Exactly. That's what I try.
That's all you can do, man. That's all you can do.
Yep. You keep me honest. So
I'm going to try to keep you honest. But, do you know what this time of the year is for woodsmen, for outdoorsmen, for people that are interested in Bigfoot? It's a big thing right now. It's going to happen in the next week. Vernal pools.
Oh, okay. Yes.
VERNAL pools.
Yes.
That is the most underrated way to get cryptid Bigfoot evidence. It's overlooked all the time. People don't consider it. And it's a big deal. And you might remember. And so for the listeners, vernal pools are, creeks are flowing along a bottom. When they flood, they kind of have these low-lying areas. They fill up with water. Some of them are the size of like a desk. Some are like the size of a small pond. And all the salamanders, snakes, lizards, and so forth come to them in the spring. They breed, they hatch, and everything in nature comes there to eat. Coyotes, owls, hawks, and Bigfoot. And if you remember, there was this area park, that had I was there. I had picked this one vernal pool because it was related to this remote area. I thought it would be a good place for them to be. I went there 7 days in a row because usually the vernal pools become active and the salamanders come down with the first warm rain of spring. Spring is today, Tuesday, March 19th. So anytime we get a warm rain after this, all these salamanders, there's literally millions and millions of these salamanders that come down. They're about the size of a Snickers bar. And I went there thinking I might see something. I was parked literally 100 yards from where a herpetologist came at night and had a Bigfoot sighting, and tracks were collected. I took Finding Bigfoot there. Was it, I don't know, last year before last, whenever it was, for their special episode. And so I was thinking about this week because I had somebody reach out to me and ask me if it was getting close to the salamander vernal pool thing. I was like, gosh, I freaking forgot. I've been so busy that, all that. But Brad, I'm going to tell you that even before that, even as busy as I am, I was still at the gym today. I still did some tries. I still did 100 floors. I still did some rowing. So, I'm going to need you to pick it up here.
I will absolutely do that. I will. Okay. I will push through, and I will make sure I get to the gym tomorrow.
Because we're about 2 months away from the Ohio Bigfoot Conference, and your adoring public is going to want to be there. You're going to want to see your smiling face. They're going to be curious about your large muscles because, we've talked about your growing here in this last year.
That's because I'm getting fat.
Well, I don't know about all that.
Oh, anyway, I'll make sure I buckle down over the next month and hit the gym.
It's time, man. It's time.
I know. I've been doing it. I just last couple of weeks I've been good, and just this week has just been one of them weeks, man. Just it is what it is. So
yeah.
Anyway, enough about us.
Okay.
I got a guest on
vernal pools.
Well, that's where a Bigfoot sighting was by a herpetologist right after you left, right?
Yeah, I'm right. Literally, I've talked about that, and I talk about it in one of the books. I'm not sure which one, about the importance of finding that.
Yep. And next thing you know, somebody else is getting a sighting, and you're left out in the cold again.
I got hosed, but in fairness, I'm not out there at night because I want to freaking see something clearly, not something kind of clearly.
Right. So anyway.
Okay.
Coming up, we've all heard the term "down the rabbit hole." I do believe that comes from Alice in Wonderland. You know, who knows who wrote the book Alice in Wonderland?
I don't remember.
I'm sure they were on acid.
Probably.
So, that to me, when I hear that term, I just think down the rabbit hole. You're going down a rabbit hole. So you're looking at things and you're kind of clicking on this, you're clicking on that. Next thing you know, you've got ghosts and cryptids and Bigfoot that, do this and do that. So there's a guy that I follow on Instagram, down the rabbit hole. It's _ down the rabbit hole _ I thought, man, this guy's got a really good site because he gets a lot of interesting video, just crazy, like ghost stuff, like, people, a ghost, I think on his site was maybe a ghost trying to start a motorcycle or something 2 days after a guy died, just some other stuff. So we reached out and he is our guest this evening. So Dayvid, welcome to the show.
Thanks,
Dayvid,
guys.
the Duke
Brad?
of Darkness.
Yes. So,
Dr. Jones, how are you, sir?
Good to see you.
Right.
Well,
I'm great, man. Thank you.
So you have your own podcast, One Nothing Podcast. Is that true?
That's correct. Yes, sir. It's
So
true crime. It's animal attacks. It's bizarre death. And we also have a series of survivors. We do every 10 episodes. And the first episode was Jeremy Evans, who was attacked by a bear in Canada. I don't know if you guys heard of him. That guy is completely amazing. He survived not one, not two, but 3 attacks from the same bear.
I remember that.
This dude hiked down the mountain without his face was basically hanging. He couldn't really see. He was crawling like something like 10 miles to his truck and then drove himself to a hospital. So, I mean, this guy. Wow.
Now, I just saw one the other day, and I don't know if it was him or was somebody else, but literally the guy's like, hey, I was just attacked by a bear, and he had a hat on, and he's like, I don't want to take my hat off because I don't know what's under my hat. And he was just bleeding, and like he showed his arm, and his arm was all mangled, and but he was like talking. So I think he said he'd walked out about 3 miles after being attacked. So was this guy attacked once, then he tries to escape and the bear just won't leave him alone?
So he was telling us that he was hunting like wild sheep in Canada. And so he's out there, he's got his rifle, he's got his backpack. He's a skilled hunter. He has all his, tools. He's got his bear spray in his backpack, which I think probably should have been out. But I mean, now you say that, right? But he had it with him. He had it with him, and he saw a cub. He actually saw it kind of walk by, and he thought, oh no, because he knew where the cubs are at, Mama Grizzly's at. And he turned around, and there it was.
Oh, wow.
Barreling towards him and attacking.
At 30 miles an hour.
Oh, man, yes. Those things are fast. Crushed his head with its jaws. I mean, slashing him. He was fighting. He was trying to get that bear spray out. He couldn't do it. This thing was just on him. He tried to escape. It actually threw him. So he was trying to climb a tree, grabbed him by his legs and ripped him to the ground. I mean, it was brutal. And the man, I mean, so now he's a PTSD advocate. He helps raise money for research. He's a great guy. If you ever go to his website, I think it's thegrizzlydude.com, help him out because wow.
So how old was he when that happened?
I don't recall. We did that episode 10 and we just dropped episode 29. Our next episode is going to be a survivor episode, and I'm not allowed to speak about it yet. But our episode 20, we did a hippo attack, and her name was Kristen Yaldur.
People think, oh, well, crocodiles in Africa or whatever, but no, or lions. Hippo is truly the most dangerous animal in Africa, correct?
Absolutely. He kills more people than any other animal in Africa. Surprising, right? We would think lions or I don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
Nope. Hippos. Dangerous.
So this woman, was she at least in a boat or was she on the
She was
beach?
in a canoe. So she was basically like it was like a tour guide. There were two tour guides in one canoe. Her and her husband were in another. There were hippos in the distance, right?
Ugh.
They should not have been there. I mean, once you see a hippo, they were kind of trying to go the opposite way, but it was too late. One had already decided. And I didn't know this, guys, but did you know that hippos do not swim? They can't swim. They don't swim.
No.
Isn't that nuts? They do not swim. So how they're in there, and the way they move from place to place and kind of float around, they go to the bottom, and they have such powerful legs that they just spring themselves up like the Incredible Hulk. You know? So that's what happened. So, one sank to the bottom and shot up, hitting her canoe, knocking them both into the water. As she was falling, it grabbed her by her leg, her thigh, and went right through that with its tooth and had her fully locked. I mean, she was stuck, but she was blind. She couldn't see. It was really murky water, which became a problem later because it's not, all the species.
It's not real clean.
It's not clean. No, it is absolutely not clean. So she instinctively was reaching for like the jaw, its eyes and stuff, and it released her because she spooked it for that second. And as soon as it released her, she swam, was trying to find where the shore was at. Her husband was looking. He finally found her. And I have to tell you guys about this woman. She's Kristen Yalder. She has Yalder Photography. This woman is amazing because she, not only did she swim herself to the shore where her husband pulled her in, she explained to these guys, her husband included, how to save her life.
Oh my God.
She told them, you got to do this, you got to do this, get a belt, do that. And then after doing that, after she was sure she was going to be all right, and they were calling like a helicopter, they're calling an ambulance, they were calling some emergency medical whatever, she started to joke with everyone. She just started joking around, making, laughing, like nothing happened. You know what I'm saying? They got her, and she's joking with the paramedics. They get her into a helicopter and take her to the hospital. She's telling them that it was her birthday when this happened. It was like 5 years ago.
Oh, wow.
On December 1st. It was her birthday. And she was joking with the guy, and he sang happy birthday to her. And there's actual video of that. And she doesn't look like she's injured at all. She looks like she's just, singing along with him, conducting. It was, I don't understand it. She did not have any effects of PTSD at all.
How far away was help from her when that happened?
Was the what now?
How far away was help?
Far.
Yeah, I mean,
it was far. Yeah. Then they got her to the hospital. They were trying to help her out, and they basically misdiagnosed some things, so they had to take her to another hospital. And she's been through like 20 plus surgeries.
Oh wow!
And it's been over 5 years now. And at first they were like, they didn't know if she would be able to walk. I mean, her leg was torn up, but healed up nice. And after all these surgeries, she was able to do she lives in Florida, so she was able to do the bike across Florida completely and successfully, which is, my God, hats off to that woman. She is amazing.
Exactly.
We had a guest on one time that she skied from to the north, from Antarctica, like 750 miles to the South Pole.
Antarctica was the first woman to ever cross Antarctica.
Yeah.
Ooh, neat.
So but the thing about it is her leg became, they call it like, it's not frostbite, but it's something from like your leg rubbing or something. So she kept putting stuff on it, whatever it was. And it ended up literally just like her leg was rotting, and her brain turned off the smell of the rotting flesh on her leg because she was so determined to get it done. So a sports psychologist basically said, your brain blocked out the smell because it knew you didn't want to stop. So literally she gets to like the South Pole or whatever it was, knocks on the door, they go in, and literally the guy's like, what's that smell? What's that smell? It smells rotten. Lily, she like took her pants off and like her legs just rotten and stuff. And she had surgeries. And, you know, women, it seems like, man, women are just, some of them are awful tough cookies. You know what I mean? They're just like some of them are a little wired different. Men, a lot of men are wired different too, but women, I think, you know,
in practice every day, man. I mean, guys come in crying over the littlest things. And before you'll see a woman, she has to take care of her 16 kids. She's got to take care of her house. She's got to take care of her husband. She's got to take care of her job. And then if everything's okay, she'll come in. But men are in there, and a lot of times you can't even see anything on X-ray. They're tougher than me.
Yeah. We get it. We get it, Russ.
Like, it's the childbirth thing, I'm thinking.
I think so.
I have that extra,
extra, you know, pain, whatever.
They can handle.
So
pain,
anyway,
yeah.
So Dayvid, you said that you actually have a personal ghost story.
I do. I have a ghost story.
So obviously you believe in ghosts.
Okay. I was a pretty heavy skeptic before this.
Okay.
I mean, I enjoy the paranormal. Let me tell you, I really enjoy it. As you can tell, I have a page with 80,000 followers, you know, over all platforms.
Okay.
And I love it. But I really wanted to see one, because I was like, well, if I don't see one, how can I even say that? You know what I'm saying? And unless you see with your own eyes. Now, I didn't see this one.
Okay.
I didn't, but it touched me.
All right.
And it actually woke me up, shaking me. So, you know, earlier in the day, I remember it was October 2014. I remember I was in my apartment. There was a fire in the apartment upstairs above me, and I didn't know about it, right?
Okay.
And it was going on pretty good. Apparently, I could smell smoke, but I thought it was barbecue, because, you know, we barbecue in Texas. Right. Sunday is 4-ish p.m. and that's what it smelled like to me. So I was like, oh, okay, whatever. And it wasn't until much later, because I heard, like, it sounded like glass breaking. That was the first thing I knew something was not right. And my neighbors upstairs usually would argue a lot, so I figured, oh, did they break a window or something? So I go to check out the window where I heard the noise to see if there's anything out there, and I couldn't really see anything, but there was actually glass on the floor in the grass by my apartment. And so it wasn't until much later, there was a man who was up the street working on a convenience store air conditioner on the top. He saw smoke coming from down the hill at our apartment complex, and he actually drove down. And I have to credit this man for saving my life, because it was because of him that I was able to get out of there. He was knocking, screaming.
Oh, wow.
And so I grabbed my dog, Charlie. She's a little Chihuahua mix. And I grabbed her. I grabbed my Go Pack, and I got the hell out. And as soon as I was going to my SUV, I looked up, in that window where the glass broke, there was fire shooting completely out of that. So I got out of there, talked to the firemen after they pretty much sprayed the whole place down. The guy said, if you were there for 10 more minutes, you would have died from smoke inhalation.
Dang.
That really kind of freaked me out, right? And then I remember there was a point where I was going to take a nap around that time, right before all this started going. And I thought, well, it's 4 p.m. on a Sunday. I got to work on Monday. Maybe a nap's not a good idea. But I have a memory of actually being asleep and being awoken by breaking glass that I can't really explain. And I really did not want to talk about this for you. It's been 10 years now. And there's been a lot of things, very strange things, as a result of that memory that I have. But anyway, getting to the ghost part. So,
okay.
My sister asked me to come stay with her. I did. She was living in an old house and had a guest bedroom. So it was late. Me and Charlie were tired. Went into the guest bedroom, going to sleep. And right before I fell asleep, I kept hearing taps, like 3 at a time, over and over again. And I like to try to explain this stuff away. Like if I see, like, for example, when I was growing up, we had a bedroom in the back of the house that the door would actually close, right, or would open, or like a rocking chair in that room would rock on its own. So I determined I went into to make sure that it wasn't like wind, or was it a window open. Turns out it was the AC. So every time the AC would kick on, it would make the door move. So I was like, okay, well, that explains it. It's not a ghost, right?
That's funny.
In this room, as I'm laying down on my right shoulder, I'm hearing this tapping, and it sounds like a tiny little hand tapping up against the wall. And I'm looking around trying to explain this. There's got to be a reason for this, right? This guest bedroom is also my sister's like crafts room. She does her little crafts in there. So I noticed there's a piece of paper with a thumbtack on the wall. And as the ceiling fan is going, I can see the piece of paper kind of move, and the edge hit the wall, and it made one little tap. And I thought, that's what it is. I'm going to bed. To bed. And it was sometime in the middle of the night. Something grabbed my shoulder. The shoulder that was facing up. I was sleeping on my right side. I felt a hand grab it and start to shake it. And I was very sure it was my sister, because she's 5 feet. She's very small. And it felt like a little tiny hand, right? As I was waking up, looking towards the door, I noticed that it was locked and closed. My sister wasn't standing there, and the hand that was moving me was still moving me.
Oh my.
And then stopped. I was fully awake now. And even Charlie woke up, because I couldn't explain what was touching me. And it was scaring the shit out of me, to be honest with you. And it was then that I heard what sounded like, because it was like a wood floor, it sounded like feet shuffling from in front of me to around the bed to the other side, like feet with socks. That's what it sounded like shuffling, And as I'm listening to this, I'm thinking to myself, what the hell's going on? And that's when I heard a chuckling from like a little boy, laughter.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Every
And
time you grab your go bag.
yeah, right. Here's the thing about that. I reacted like a child. I covered myself with a blanket. Protection, right? That's ultra protection. And I just sat there, or I was laying there thinking about, what the hell is this? What is going on in here? And I waited for anything else, and it seemed like it stopped, whatever it was. And so I slowly looked around. I didn't see anything over there. Door's locked again. It's closed. Because I can't sleep with an open door. I don't know why. It's just a thing. And then, right as I was about to go just fall back to sleep, I hear shuffling again from that same spot where the laughter was, shuffling its way right up to where I'm laying and I'm facing, and it stops right there. And I couldn't move, man. I couldn't move. I'm looking at nothing, but there's noise.
Wow.
After that, there was taps, couple more taps, and that was it. And the day I was so exhausted from all the fire stuff and dealing with the management and all this, that somehow I fell back asleep. Me and Charlie just fell back asleep. We were exhausted. The next morning, I'm sitting there at the table with my sister having coffee, and I asked her, I said, what is going on in that room? And she said, oh, you experienced it too? Oh, and I was like, what the hell? Why didn't you tell me something is going on in there? She's like, oh yeah, mom and dad have stayed, and they said they've heard noises and this and this. And I've been in there doing crafts, and stuff will fall off the shelf.
She left you to die, man.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, that's family for you. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, tell a guy, throw you a bone. She freaking put you in the den of hell and left you to die.
And that is the scariest thing I've ever experienced by far. Oh, and there's more to it. It turns out she was telling me that my nephew Max, who was 3-4 at the time, had what do you call those things? Like an imaginary friend. She said that's how it started. He was talking to someone. I thought, is he talking to himself? Or I go and check. He's playing with someone he calls Coco. Right. So I thought, okay, well, that's a normal thing, right? Kids have imaginary.
Sure.
Big deal. Turns out, much later, the imaginary friend starts to scare Max, like really, really scare him to the point where he's running out of the room, screaming his head off and crying and, inconsolable. He just wants to get away from Coco because Coco is scaring him.
Oh my God.
It got really bad to the point where we couldn't take Max to like a Halloween shop or anything that had like demons or, Frankenstein. He would freak out if he saw anything like that. And I believe it's because of whatever he was seeing in that room. And the other thing that was very unusual is when my brother-in-law, my ex-brother-in-law, and my sister moved into that house, the owner of the house, the landlord, told him, listen, I feel it's fair to warn you that anyone who moves into this house, whether they're married or together or anything like that, end up breaking up. And that's I just want to let you know that I just think it's fair to let you know. My sister was like, yeah, sure. Sure enough, before they moved out, they got a divorce.
There's some bad juju there.
Something's wrong in there because the guy she was married to is a very nice and calm guy. He was a big guy, don't get me wrong, but he was very afraid of everything. He was just so nice.
Right.
He was a great guy. And I remember every time I would go and visit, he started to slowly get more angry and distant and strange. And at the time I was there for the fire, he let it known that he didn't want me there, which is way outside of character.
So, I mean, that's happened. I've seen some like real life stories where people, something happens and they get infected by something, a spirit, and it causes them, and they move on, or they actually address it and they can get it taken care of. But man, I guess if you don't know if it's happening, you just don't know. You think, gosh, man, this guy's turned into a jerk, but really maybe it's not his fault.
He was really not himself. He was something else. It reminds me of The Shining. I don't know if you read the book.
Yeah,
the movie's great.
Yeah.
Right. The movie's great, but the book has more of an arc for Jack Nicholson's character, where he's a normal guy. Yeah, he's drinking and all this, but towards the end, he has lost his freaking mind. And this is what this guy seemed. He just did not seem himself. So they did get a divorce. And then my sister she's like a psych nurse. And one of the gentlemen that works there was like a 70+ year-old gentleman. And they started talking about, like places they lived and this and that. So she told him that she lived in this house, and he asked her, oh, really? In that neighborhood? What's the address? And she said, it's this. And it turns out he lived there as a child.
Oh my God.
Oh, wow.
Which is such a trip to me. But he said, yeah, I lived in that exact house. I was an orphan. He was from Puerto Rico, an orphan. And so he was living with a foster woman who owned the house at the time when he was a young boy. And he said this woman was evil. She was evil to the core. She didn't care about us at all. She was just interested in the foster money she was getting. I don't know, something. That's
you hear that more times than not. So
right.
They need some more money so they get another foster kid.
Exactly.
I'm not saying it's everybody, but so like I said, I started following your site because you just have some crazy stuff. Do people submit stuff, or do you go out and find some stuff, or so somebody submits something to you, and do you have one of those ones that you get and you're just like, holy crap, man, this is just nuts.
I just got a Bigfoot one. I just got a Bigfoot one. Yeah. I think today, as a matter of fact. And you may know this one. So it's a guy who has a camera in the woods where he lives, I guess. And you can see the face clearly. It's a hairy face, right? And it's really dark, like a even blacker than the brown, usual, the brown look. It was a blacker face. And then he was standing there kind of just looking. Next thing you know, he's messing with the trees there. And he's like ripping them up on camera. Like some of them were already down. He just picked one up and he swung it down really hard. Like I know I couldn't have done that. It was very compelling video. I have to look into it before I'll share it.
That's the one. Was that the one from like a crime scene? Was there some crime scene tape up around the area or something?
I do not recall that. I do not recall crime scene
You
tape.
sent me this one, Brad. It was like, was that a daytime that happened?
Yes.
Yeah,
I remember that. It's like maybe 15 or 20 feet away, kind of at the edge of like some brush or whatever. There's something that you can see it over there. Okay.
He's standing. There's a big tree. He's kind of looking a little off to the side, and then there's two like trees. I guess he was messing with it. He knocked down basically. And I know there's a lot of that. If you go and you find like giant footprints, there's like trees that the bark is just ripped completely off. Yeah. And trees that are completely knocked down. And it was strange. It looked like he was trying to accomplish something. I'm not real sure what he was trying to accomplish, but
sometime we've seen him. There's is that the Louisiana or Mississippi Skunk Ape one?
Skunk Ape.
Yeah, where literally a lady's, I think she was, I don't know if she was kayaking or something.
Was it a man? Yeah.
Okay. And literally this thing's tearing up a tree, and basically they're assuming that it's trying to get to the grubs or whatever's in the tree, the insects in the tree, to eat them like bears do. And it's just like tearing stuff up. And I think it stands up and maybe turns around and looks at them or whatever, but it's pretty compelling too.
Yeah. We chose that as one of our most 5 compelling our video things or something on one show.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Nice. Is the original 79 video in there?
67, the Patterson Gimlin
67? Oh, so I was way up.
October 67.
Yep.
October 12th. Dr. Jones.
That's right.
At 3:45 p.m. No.
That's got to be obviously the most compelling piece of video, and people say it's faked, which it's not. I mean, we've had lunch and dinner with Bob Gimlin, several times. We've talked to him. The man's story has never changed in 50 years or whatever, 50 some years. Almost 60 or 50. So yeah, it's getting there. It's never changed. The guy basically, Roger Patterson, I don't know if you know this or not, but a warrant was put out for his arrest because he owed like $12 rent on the camera that he rented to shoot that video with. And they're saying that he spent like $3,000 out of Tennessee for Bob Hieronymus to, get this suit and wear it, blah, blah, blah. So it's just not true. I mean, if you look at, it's funny. I remember I saw somebody talk about it one time. And they said, Bob Hieronymus is a big guy. This did the walk, everything looks really good, except he forgets one thing. The shin angle of a Bigfoot is actually about 72 degrees, where a human's 51. So if any human in the world takes a step, their back fin goes to a 51 degree angle. Patty does 72 degrees. So there's 21 degrees difference between the two. And a human just doesn't walk like that. And every time he recreated it, he never walked with a 72 degree shin angle, period.
Yeah.
So you can fake a lot of stuff, but you can't fake that.
That's my favorite. That piece of evidence is my favorite because we're talking before cameras. I mean, before cell phones, before Photoshop, before any type of AI technology. We're going way back.
Yeah.
You can't fake that, man. I mean, even I just think and I just recently found out it was a female Patty. Yeah. That blew my mind because if you look at it again, you can clearly see breasts.
Right. So, absolutely. Wow. And that was kind of the other argument was, why would someone spend extra money making it a female? You know what I mean? It's just something you really wouldn't do.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. Well, I do. Go ahead.
I do get a lot of videos sent my way. A lot of them are not paranormal. I don't know why people love to send me just whatever is on their mind. I get a few people who send me really good stuff. I get a lot of people who send me not so good stuff. I do have a kind of a criteria that I like to follow, and it's based on how I I basically would watch paranormal shows back in the day. I would one of my favorite was Paranormal Caught on Video. One of my favorite.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because they have good stuff, right? And so me and my girlfriend would watch this endlessly, and every time it came to like UFOs where there was just lights, strange lights in the sky, she was bored to death. She didn't like it.
Right.
Or there was like maybe there was one that was pretty clear that's not real or something like this, right? And but it was the few that were so compelling that I wanted to know more. So I thought, why not make a page that I can share the ones I want to watch? I think a lot of people would probably want to see something like that, not just everything thrown together, right?
Sure.
So I do go through, like I hunt every single morning between 5 and 9 o'clock. Look for 3 solid videos that I feel I can share that I feel will make the hairs stand up on the back of your neck, kind of thing. If I feel I have those, I'll share them every single day. I don't take a day off. I enjoy it too much. And luckily, I've built a good following. I've been very fortunate to have a lot of good people, and because of this thing, now I'm on a podcast. I'm a co-host on a podcast, which I never thought I'd ever do. So,
believe me, we never thought we'd do this either.
Yeah,
literally, we said no. How many times, Russ? At least a couple. At least a couple. So
I'm an introvert, so it's really hard for me to. Now I'm getting used to this. I can get in front of the camera. I'm thinking about putting myself in front of some of the videos now. With the green screen.
Yep.
And talking it through. I do have subscriptions now. I'm on Instagram. So if you want extra content, you can definitely join that. I have a show called The 6 Questions, which is an interview show. I usually interview paranormal investigators or podcasters or what have you. And then I also have a Paranormal series where I have 2 videos that go head to head.
Okay.
And subscribers get to vote which one they think is scarier. So yeah, extra content there. And but no, man, I really enjoy this stuff. It is my passion, essentially, and I'm very grateful to have you as a follower. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate the kind words about that.
Hey, no problem. So do you, like I said, is there a video that kind of sticks out in your mind that you're just like,
yes,
man, I just that's freaky.
There's 2. I'll give you one that's clearly fake. Clearly fake. Right. And I posted this because it was kind of a joke to me, like an inside joke. So it's a video of a sink. So picture a regular kitchen sink.
All right.
A little rundown. So the house is a little old. And you know that little sprayer that can retract and come out.
Yep.
So that's all the way out. And the water is on. And what you see is the sprayer moving. It looks like it's moving on its own, spraying everywhere. Okay. You hear noises and you see all this, but only the experienced viewer who captures everything with their eyes will see that in the reflection is a man with the fishing line doing this business, moving it around. I caught so much guff for that one because everyone caught it, But yeah, that to me is a hilarious one because it's obviously fake as can be. The one that really gets me is, and I'm sure you guys have heard of this, the pantry ghost. Ring a bell?
No idea.
Oh, I'm sharing that again. Oh my goodness. So it's a video of a man who he's in his home. His pantry door has a large window that is frosted. It's a frosted window with a nice little design down the middle.
Okay, so like goes into the pantry.
Right, so that's his pantry door. Okay, just to give you a clue.
Like it's a frosted glass that says pantry on it or something like that.
No, it doesn't say pantry. It has this neat little design that goes down the middle. It's kind of like a And so, it's but a glass door.
Yeah,
That's his pantry door.
Okay.
He was having issues because it was opening at 3:30 something in the morning every morning. He'd come downstairs and it would be open. He decides, I'm going to put a camera on here, record it, see what happens.
Okay.
So it actually records door opening at 3 something in the morning. So then he decides, I'm gonna wait during this time period and see it. And he's down there with the camera. Sure enough, it opens again. So he's had enough of this. He decides, I'm going to put a lock on this, right?
Okay.
And then I'm going to record and see what happens. So that night at 3 whatever in the morning, it's trying to open and it can't. And it's trying to open.
Okay.
So this freaks him out, right? So like, he decides, I'm going to go ahead and wait and see what goes on. So here it is again, the very next night or some nights after, it's trying to open it again. And then he sees 2 hands press up against the glass. And it freaks him out. So he goes to put his hands up there. And when he does that, a face appears, and it's a little girl's face pressed up.
Oh my! I mean, he certainly wasn't as faked out or freaked out as me. If I see hands up there, I'm grabbing my go pack. I'm gone.
What I loved is he was breathing heavily, and you can tell in the video he was scared. You can tell he was scared. And then when he put his hands up and he saw the face, he freaked out. He freaked out. The face is so clear. It was so clear.
Yeah, you'll have to reshare that one so we can really see that one. So I'm going through your page.
Probably my top 10. Definitely in the top 10. Okay. I love that one.
So did you say any backstory about the little girl that lived there or anything like that? Or
so it turns out there's a documentary about that. I actually watched it. There's a lot more to the story. He takes the door off its hinges, right? And apparently he releases whatever's in there because now it's free in his house.
Oh.
And it's great. Yeah, it's scaring him to the point to where they decide they need to move.
Yeah.
One of the most interesting parts about that is that they had a camera on the side of the bed or whatever. And when they were going through the pictures, they saw that someone took a picture of them from above the bed, like high above the bed in their camera. Who did that? They don't know. I think it's this ghost. Wow. What a trip, man. There's a lot more to it. If you guys, I'll send you a link to it. It's really interesting. But right after this, he posted it up and people were obviously interested. So there was a guy who said, I don't believe you. And the guy actually happened to live not too far away. So he said, well, come on over. Come see it for yourself. And the dude saw it for himself. He saw the hands and he saw the face.
Really?
Yeah. And they have it on video. They have it on video. Compelling stuff, man. It was great.
So, you've been doing this paranormal thing. We don't do a lot of paranormal. We do, but not a whole lot. We're kind of that flesh and blood Bigfoot thing walking around the woods. What do you think? I mean, has this always been around? Russ and I have this discussion all the time about the veil between good and evil is maybe getting thinner and thinner as we in today's society. With some of the things that are going on, because there's just things in this world right now that you hear that are just absolutely evil. And I don't, there's people out there that are getting crazier and crazier. I don't know if it's like just a bell curve where, people are always crazy, but if there's only 100 million people in the world, you don't see that many times. But now that there's 7 billion, there's a crap ton of crazy people out there. So, what is your thought on that, like that little ghost girl right there? What is she? Is she caught between us and them? Is the veil between good and evil getting thinner?
I don't know that it's a veil between good and evil. I don't think that's what it is, but I think the way I look at it, or one of the ways, because I theorize about this all the time. And one of my theories is there was a change going back 2012, 2014 that CERN may have put into place.
Okay.
So when they discovered the God particle, when that whole thing happened and the collider, I remember they were saying that there was possibly a singularity that could happen as a result of it. And there's theories out there that it did actually happen and that we have been pushed into a whole other universe or a different reality or however you want to call it. But I can say that I can safely say for my own sake or from my own point of view that the time before that seemed to me to be a very calm time. It seemed to me to be a very relaxing thing. Democrats and Republicans were getting together and passing bills together and kumbaya and all this stuff. And then at some point, things kind of fractured, and there has been a lot of stuff coming to light. As I feel, could be as a result of it. I don't know if that's true or not. I can't prove it to you guys, but it doesn't it seem way more bizarre on this side than it was on that side? Doesn't it seem like there's disclosures from UFOs now? There's claims that Skunk Works and all these are making UFOs, making their own out of reverse engineering, and now they're starting to use them to scare the public about aliens. And there's just so much stuff out there right now. It just seems unreal. Too many ghosts are appearing. Too many things are coming forth. There's so many cryptids now. I mean, I can't even count them. There used to be just a few.
Yeah, I mean, there's books or websites out there that literally there's a cryptid in every state, and I saw you saw Lyle Blackburn, I saw on your page, you met him down in Texas because he's a big Texas guy down there in that area in Falcon stuff. And yeah, he's a good guy. And we were talking about, we had him on one time and we were talking about, I think like the South Carolina like gator man or something, something crazy. And it's just like
freaking pig man freaked me out. It was like Pig Man of Alabama or something.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah,
I remember him on Seinfeld. Do you remember that Pig Man on Seinfeld?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
I just saw that the other day.
Yeah,
I do not remember Pig Man on Seinfeld, but anyway,
that was a great episode. You'll have to go back and catch that.
All right, I will. But it's kind of like there's cryptids everywhere, and it seems like some of them are maybe closer to military bases or things getting out. Are they? I remember Alex Jones talking about back in the day where they had these, pig human chimeras, and they're growing them in these artificial wombs in places, and this was like 20 years ago. So all those things, have they grown up and have they escaped? Have they got out? What are we seeing with Dogman? And there seems like there's a lot of we had a Dogman expert on, and I think he was from Houston area or something, and I think there's a military base right there.
How old is Dogman, guys? Do you know? How isn't it like 5 years or something?
Well, of course, it goes back to a lot of people say that it looks just like the Egyptian god Anubis.
Oh,
One of the pyramids, when you look at the dog,
right.
A lot of people say that it's similar to that. But Aaron Deese, which is out of Texas, we had him on, and he told us a lot of stories. We had another guy on out for Dogman out of Ohio, Jody Cook, that was telling us some stories too. I mean, I wonder how much of it is because of the internet and access, and the stories are. I mean, because if you're taking reports and you're doing these things, like I take them all the time too. It's like some of the stuff I get in, I'm like, these people aren't. Some of them are just liking the attention. They have nothing in their life. They're just making up something that's, I won't name. There's a podcast that's really big in Bigfoot world, and this week I listen to it every week, and they had some guests on there, and I'm like, he's full of crap. He's not even telling the truth. I mean, it's so,
there's too many of them. I don't think. I mean, okay, Bigfoot. Granted, there's evidence.
Sure. Yeah,
there's collected evidence.
Yes.
There's hair. There's prints. There's The question I always ask when I go on a show that has Bigfoot is, why the fuck have we not caught Bigfoot yet?
That's easy.
Russ, go ahead.
That's easy. I mean, here's the problem that we have with Bigfoot is that people discount the scarcity of the animal. But there's not anything that doesn't indicate that Bigfoot's not a normal and ordinary animal. It's just really rare. But historically, one's been killed about every 3 years. If you go back and look at ones that get hit by cars, or one that get hit by train, or they get shot, or whatever it happens to be, it's about every 3 years that one will get killed. So, I mean,
where are the bodies?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, we've done whole episodes. I remember when I spoke at that big Ohio Bigfoot conference one time, I did a whole talk on nothing but an hour talk on where are the bones. And, and you can show like you're into all the true crime stuff. You have the University of Tennessee has the boneyard where they put humans in all these positions. People have donated their bodies to this. They put them in cars. They bury them underground. They put them in anthills just to see how long it takes to deteriorate it. And the reality is that it's just hard to find things that are dead. In nature, we seldom ever find predator bones. I mean, there's literally in West Virginia hundreds of thousands of coyotes. It's very rare to ever find one. Bobcats, there's oodles of bobcats everywhere. I've seen one dead one, and I'm in the woods all the time. It's just that we see prey animals like deer. But one time, Dayvid, I was on some forest road, and this guy was an ecologist for the National Forest Service. He's a PhD, stopped, and we were talking about why we're out there. And then, he asked what I did for a living. I told him I was a chiro, and he said, "Are you that chiro who does all the Bigfoot stuff?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he put his car and stopped, he wanted to talk about this stuff and told me that he had heard wood knocks 8 times over the last 15 years. And he knew that, it was not natural. It was something else. But we were talking about bones, and he told me, he's like, "Listen, just even deer bones." He said, in the state of Ohio, he said, there's hardly any that we find compared to how many dead deer there are. But aside from that, and Brad and I have done this thing too, where we talk about, so how long does a Bigfoot live? Well, a normal greater primate is going to live around 50 years. And so then the number that they would be in North America, so all of Canada and all of United States, a good guess is 4,000 to 20,000 Bigfoot animals. And so then they're living about 50 years. Their attrition is about 5% a year. So you start dividing that out, and it comes up to about one dead animal around every 1,000,000 acres.
Okay.
So, I mean, in West Virginia, we had the Monongahela National Forest, which is 1.2 million acres. In all that area with all those steep mountains and no trails and creeks and all this other stuff, one Bigfoot dies a year. So the task is just a big ask.
And honestly, Russ took a report one time of a guy was using a bulldozer to clear a road up through the mountains of West Virginia or whatever. And a coworker of his was like going up to help him out or take him something, whatever it was. And he literally sees this Bigfoot off in the woods. And it's not off in the woods, it's across the field. And he said this thing was about 300 yards away. And he said this thing is watching this guy on this bulldozer. He said he was at least 300 yards away. And he said this thing was barely peeking out behind a tree. So you think that it's 300 yards away. You're really not going to see it. It's hidden in the woods. He says, no, this thing was absolutely just hiding. And he said, it didn't even know I was there because it was watching the guy on the dozer. Yeah. So very, apprehensive. Don't want to come out. There's been many a time where Russ has taken reports out of West Virginia where guys, a lot of hunters, especially, hey, I got a 30-06 and, man, I've been deer hunting and I look and I hear something and I look over and I see a Bigfoot look around a tree. And he said, the hunter says to us, it was so human-like that I knew if I pulled the trigger, I would go to prison.
Yeah. I mean, the reality is they're going hunting. They're not expecting to see a Bigfoot. I've talked to 3 hunters that had clear open shots at a Bigfoot, and it just catches them off guard. And I always tell a story about my brother-in-law. His birthday is today. Happy birthday, Chad.
Hey, happy birthday.
And, so coyotes didn't used to be common, and him and I were deer hunting with our family. We left the woods. He said, man, I saw a coyote. And I'm like, are you serious? Why didn't you shoot it? And he said, well, it just caught me off guard. At first, I just thought it was a dog. And by the time I realized what it was already gone. Yeah. And Bigfoot's like that too. People of all the, in modern times, we have 80,000 reports. So, you take those 80,000 reports, 90% of them are a few seconds of a road crossing or 3 seconds here or 2 seconds here or 1 second. It's just not very long that people are seeing these animals for.
Right. Not only that, but say a whole percentage of that is not even real. Like they're just not telling the truth or.
Yeah. I mean, I think that when you look at it and you say you have 80,000 reports, and the ones I look at is I'd say, okay, let's say that 90% of them are misidentifications or they're people that are just trying to get attention. And so you just throw all those out. Now, keep in mind that 1 out of every 20 sightings gets reported. So we're just not even considering the hundreds of thousands there are. We're just taking that 80,000 and we're saying we're just throwing that away. And so all we're left with is around 1,500. But in that 1,500, let's just throw those 2/3 of those away, and let's just keep the very best ones we have. We'll keep the ranger from Yellowstone Park, the most renowned game or park ranger in history, Action Jackson, that has a clear daytime sighting. He patrolled Yellowstone for 35 years on horse to protect it from poachers. Do we think that Action Jackson didn't know what a bear was or couldn't identify the animals? It just seems unreasonable. And just of the 1,000 reports that I've taken, I could probably give you 10 or 20 that are state troopers having clear daytime sightings from 30 or 40 feet away, lasting seconds, unimpeachable witnesses. All it takes is just one of those stories to be true, just one, and then it's all true.
I want one of those stories to be true, and that person captures it. That's what I want to see.
Well, I tell you what, I've seen 3 in my life.
I would love to see it alive. You've seen 3?
I've seen 3.
Wow.
So one was questionable. One was a road crossing. I know what it was. I've taken reports out of this area. It's actually fairly close to my house, and I've got 5 or 7 reports out.
And that was the daytime.
And that was in the morning. It was 7:15 in the morning. So, and the third one was literally I watched it for 14 minutes to a thermal, 25 yards away.
It was at night, obviously. Thermal.
It was at night. Yeah, it was at night. So that was
thermal camera, maybe.
No. So it was funny. I did a podcast for a friend of ours. I've only done like one other podcast in my life, too. I'm a guest. And it was a live podcast. I'm telling us about my experience, and the guy's like, live commenting, this guy's full of shit. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm like, so we were there with the Finding Bigfoot equipment truck was at our expedition, the show.
Oh,
so these $35,000 thermals, this was back in 2011 or 2012. But I did not have my own thermal, and I'm not going to take one of their thermal. They're not going to let just anybody borrow one of their $35,000 thermals. So I didn't have access to that. Russ had his FLIR Scout, I do believe, or something of that. I had back years and years and years ago, the BFRO was gifted about 8 or 10 of these XP200 thermal cameras. It's a very rugged military grade thermal, except it takes a very specific plug to plug it in. It does not have an internal recording device. So you have to have an external video recording device to record what's on screen. And you just can't. It makes it unusable, because back 12 years ago we didn't have anything that was like, hey, let's just plug it in and use it like we do today. You'd take like a DVD burner or something, something crazy out in the woods. And so I literally had an XP200 that could not record, and there was 4 of us literally passing the thermal back and forth watching this thing for 14 minutes. And Russ was about 100 yards away up the trail. And as I'm texting him, because I know it was 14 minutes, because I was literally started texting him. I smelled it first. The guys in the group saw it. I'm like telling them they're full of shit. It's probably just a monument or a rock that got hot, or, just something then I smelled it. Then I get up and I start looking. I'm like, oh, there it is. So as soon as Russ started coming towards our group to get the recording with his thermal that he had to record, there was another big wood knock, and the one I was watching literally disappeared, just boom, gone, and it left. And Russ literally heard it going through the pine trees, right by him. But a thermal, it goes here. It doesn't go deep. So it won't go through a screen. It won't go through glass. Gives you no depth perception. So those pine trees that were right next to the trail, that's what it recorded. It didn't record anything, 10 feet in the woods where this thing was going through the woods. So, but anyway.
Did you smell it, Russ? Did you get a good whiff of it?
I smelled it.
What did it smell like?
I didn't smell, but I can tell you that only about 15% of the reports are associated with the smell. So
I smelled it. I was on the ground actually laying down because it was night and I was just trying to get a nap, and I smelled it. They said they see something. I'm like, no. Then I smelled it, and it was just like, man, it was just like sewage, just garbage, just really nasty. And it was funny because the people were standing up, they couldn't smell it, but I was on the ground and it literally hit me, and I could smell it. And then they bent down where I was laying and they could smell it, but if you stood back up, they couldn't smell it. It's kind of weird.
That's interesting.
One of the teachers I interviewed, she said that before she saw the Bigfoot, she smelled it. She thought that her dogs had gotten in the creek again. And it smelled like wet dog, and that's what she thought that it was. But I mean,
that actually makes sense.
The primates have a gland called the apomere gland that's whenever something is afraid or aroused, it secretes this smell. So, I'm sure it's something related to something like that. But like I said, it's more often than not that there's no smell associated with Bigfoot reports. About 15% of the cases.
Right. Well, anyway,
can I ask you real quick before I get a good feel of you guys. You guys are no nonsense. And I'm dying to ask this question about this because I really want to hear what you guys say about this.
Sure.
Interdimensional ability. Yeah, that's what I thought. What I thought.
That's not our belief. There are people out there that do believe this. We've actually had witnesses on. We have a good friend of ours that we do. We have a small group of us that we believe. You know what I mean? It's like me and Russ, and we got 3 or 4 buddies that we Bigfooted with forever, and we just believe each other because we stay in our group because there's a lot of noise out there, and it's kind of weird. I don't know if in the cryptid world, but the Bigfoot world is like, hey, we're this camp, you're not in this camp, and I did this, and it's kind of people bicker, and it's kind of BS. But
right.
We have a very, very good friend of ours that was on the show. He's a pilot for a major carrier, 29,000 hours or something in a jet. Just the guy is impeccable. I mean, actually, out of all that hours, he was interviewed for a TV show. We had him on, and he actually videoed a UAP. He was at 30,000 feet, and this thing was at 60,000 feet holding. And it was a silver sphere, and we talked about it, and he showed the video and everything. So he was in the woods one time, and he literally said, I'm standing there, ball light gets about 4 or 5 foot diameter, goes down, gets about 10 foot diameter, goes down, gets about 20 foot diameter, goes down, and it's gone. He said, I know what I saw. I don't know what it was. Was it a portal? Was it something? I don't know. But he swears what he saw. And he's like, that's the only proof I would believe of anybody telling me they've seen a portal. But, I don't think they're interdimensional.
I think it's so interesting. It would help explain how they can hide so damn well. They can just jump in and out whenever they sense danger. It sounds ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous, to be honest with you. But
here, I got a quick story.
Yeah.
So I think I figured out some of this. So people are watching these Bigfoot, and if you're watching a Bigfoot, let's say you catch it out in the open and it stops. The thing to do is do not take your eyes off of it, period. Because what happens is you're never afraid of the one that you're seeing. You're always afraid of the other one that you don't. Because they're not lone and solitary animals. They move in groups or with each other. Right. So the other one will make a noise or try to get you distracted. So you'll just turn your head. Next thing you come back, it's gone. So I took a report one time fairly close to my house. Guy said this thing, he saw it. It goes through a break in the woods. It was like a farm, like where you drive a tractor between fields. And he said the woods were like, maybe 30 yards thick, but this tractor path went right through it. He said he sees this thing goes through this tractor path. So he sees it. He takes off after it. He runs through the path, hoping that it came out the other side. It's a big field. He's going to see it. He comes out the big field, and he's like, literally, there's 8 cows standing there looking at me. He said, nothing. This thing disappeared.
Wow.
And I think is what we've learned through experience is they go, we're at this eye level here. These are big, tall creatures, and we're thinking they're going to be here. I believe that they go to the ground. They get down on the ground. We've got thermal of them army crawling at night in the woods.
Wow.
Literally army crawling. So I believe that they go to the ground, they get on the ground, they crawl, they stop, they blend in, and you just never see them.
I don't think they ever move unless they're seen.
Yeah.
They just stay perfectly still, just like a big buck in Texas. If someone's driving down a gravel road, the big buck will lay down on its side to hide its horns until that car passes. And these things do the same thing. They don't move. They'll stand perfectly still, usually with a tree, even if it's a small tree compared to how large they are. They just do not move unless they're seen.
Yep. Anyway.
I wonder how many deaths you can attribute to the Bigfoot out in the wild where he surprises somebody.
411 thing.
What's that?
Do what?
Missing 411. Dayvid Pilates. Do you know what we're talking about?
Mm-mm.
You can tell him, Brad. I know that you follow that closely.
Right. So Dayvid Pilates, and Russ is having a beef with Dayvid anyway. So, so Dayvid Pilates came out with a book called Missing 411.
Uh-huh.
So he was he ex-FBI at some point or something like that, or
he
cop?
He was a murder detective for LA.
Okay. So there you go. So he basically was at this conference one time, and he's at his cabin at night, and somebody comes and knocks on his door, and he answers the door, and this ranger goes, "Hey, there's something going on in the national forest." And he goes, "What?" He says, "People disappear and they go missing in the national forest all the time." So he was a published author, so he had a FOIA. He did a Freedom of Information Act, asked the National Forest or Yellowstone or whatever it was, "Hey, I need a list of all your missing people." And basically they said, "Okay, you're a author. It's going to cost you $100,000." He's like, no, I'm a published author, so you have to give it to me for free. "Oh, well, you're not in that many libraries." He says, "Well, it's not how many libraries I'm in. I'm a published author." So finally they came back to him, and I think the number was it ended up being like $1 million or something for all the missing people in the United States at national forests. So is what he did. He went and actually investigated with himself and some other people through papers and missing persons reports. And it was not somebody that it was like people that were non-suicidal. It was not, he had this whole criteria. Some of the criteria is when you go do a search, the dogs won't search. So a dog will go they'll bring in a bloodhound. It'll walk 20 feet down the path. It'll just lay down and quit. It won't even follow a scent.
Right.
So he started off with 411 cases. Now he's on 5 or 6 books, Russ?
Yeah.
So
at one point it was number one on or Netflix for a while, Amazon Prime. Yeah. If you go in there and just look Missing 411, there's several shows that are really wildly popular.
And there was a very famous case. It was in Appalachia. It was on the Appalachian Trail, Russ, the kid case.
Mountain National Park.
Yeah. So basically this family was playing hide and go seek. They met another family by this meadow, and they were playing hide and go seek. And, one of the kids was like, "Hey, all y'all oxen free, everybody come in." And literally the one kid didn't come in. And the dad was there, and the dad had just seen the kid. So he takes off running down the trail because he knows the kid was over here. The kid's gone, just gone, disappeared. Johnson. So they literally call in search and rescue. FBI shows up. They do all this investigation. He said that something was very odd was that the military came in and brought their own.
National Guard came in.
The National Guard came in with helicopters, Hueys, and full armament, not search and rescue. They were full battle rattle. Had their own operating base looking for this kid. So somebody I can't remember if somebody stepped up or saw the news story and said, "Hey, we saw something on this mountain." So
another family was camping or was having a picnic on the mountain.
Right. So they said they looked up on this mountain and they saw this thing carrying something over its shoulder across the mountain.
Yeah.
So they go turn it into the police. The police say, no. Too far time and distance. He couldn't get from point A to point B where this family saw it in that amount of time. Well, the dad and his brother actually recreated it and could do it.
Mm-hmm.
So they could recreate, and this thing could get from point A to point B in the amount of time that this family could see it. So it's very plausible that they saw something carrying their child across the mountain.
Did they ever find the kid?
Never found him. The thing about it was an FBI agent showed up as kind of a liaison, and his sole job in the FBI was to follow missing children cases in parks. So I do believe the FBI agent ended up committing suicide.
Good Lord.
Dayvid Politis actually interviewed the dad, correct, Russ? Went back and found the dad, and interviewed him. You know, this kid, they were in from Virginia or something, and Dayvid actually flew in from California to interview him. And the dad spent some time with him. And because Dayvid knew the case so well, the dad felt comfortable talking to him. And the story about that thing being seen carrying his child across the mountain was never made public. But yeah, so he's written 5 books. YouTube it, listen to him. You will not want to go in the woods by yourself. Seriously.
You know what?
Criteria how to avoid what the most likely is. But he's also a Bigfoot guy. And he's been asked, and he said that he believes a very small, going back to your original question, Dayvid, he believes a very small portion of all those disappearances are related to Bigfoot.
It tells me by saying that National Guard's going in full gear that they know what's there.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's like the government has an idea, if not completely knows.
Oh, absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, we've had people in the organization in the BFRO that are from Washington, Virginia, 3-letter agencies. You know, they work in military contractors, stuff like that. And I remember, I think we had one person told us that the federal government refers to it as species number 5, which I don't know what species 1 through 4 is, but they just say species number 5. It's well documented on military bases. We had one guest, which it's some reports out there he did, and literally there's, it's the transcripts of there's a artillery base in, what is that? Is that in Maryland or something, Russ, or Virginia? Or Monongahela did it? Huh?
I don't recall.
It's Maryland, over in that area, and basically there's an artillery base, or there's an artillery range on a base, and literally, you know, there happens all the time where they literally announce Squatch on the range, and they quit firing because there's literally Bigfoot going across the artillery range, and the spotters see them, and they shut down artillery. And it's documented. It's in the transcripts. So the military knows. I think there was wasn't there a downed helicopter in Georgia, or maybe it wasn't a downed helicopter. It was some special ops guys were doing a night deal in Georgia, and they were set up, and literally there was like 2 squatches in the trees going around the trees above them, and they filed a report, and, you know, kind of did it on, you know, they didn't really want to talk about it, but they filed a report and did it anonymously.
You hear that all the time. There, the fighter pilots see them on thermal, and especially in Alaska.
Yeah,
I mean, it's common.
Yeah.
So what do you think the odds are that there's a military outfit or some sort of governmental outfit that has like a capture type of thing where they actually have them in some sort of base and they're examining them, or they have them, you know, like observing them in a...
My tinfoil hat wants to believe it, but there's also that side of me that says people talk too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's my argument, of course, because, you know, I'm 250,000 patient visits in now. And I always tell Brad, man, people can't keep their mouth shut for nothing. If they're I mean, I'm telling you, there'd be somebody I'd saw that would say, I was on that team, and people got to tell somebody, and I just can't. I believe there's people in government that know, but I just don't believe that there's some type of systemic plan. There's not a book, this book of secrets that the president gets to see. It says Bigfoot's real. We have 16 of the bodies or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. Who's to say?
I'm convinced that they're told, they of course once they get elected, they go and ask, and they're told just this is not your area. I recall a story where Jimmy Carter had gone in for a briefing on this, and after the briefing, he was seen weeping somewhere
about Bigfoot,
about the briefing of UFOs. Apparently,
really interested in UFOs when he went in.
Huge story that he went in. He was determined, because that was part of his, I guess, one of his promises is he's going to get to the bottom of it. He got to the bottom of it, all right. It freaked the hell out of him. He was weeping to himself because apparently it's, I don't know. There's a lot of theories out there, but I will say this: I used to Uber, and I picked up a military gentleman who was he had still 2 years left, and as a matter of fact, I had just done a show with the Cryptid Warfare guys, where I did research on Project Bluebeam.
Okay.
You guys remember that? Okay. I researched it. At the time I was doing it, I was like, this is the most ridiculous shit I've ever heard. But I'm going to research it, where it came from, Serge Manasse, the book. Right. Project Blue Book, NASA, all those stuff. I went through all of it. I really did a deep dive. And I think I think it's before the show came out, or the show had just come out. Picked up this gentleman, great guy. He still had 2 years. He was telling me how disgruntled he was, basically, with a lot of his friends had died. They had done a lot of operations, and they were the kind of guys that go in, early morning, like between 1 and 3 in the morning. They go and they clean up. That's their job, is to go and take care of the stuff. And he really wanted to get moved out. Well, he started talking. We were just enjoying a conversation, having a great time talking about stuff, laughing about this and that. And then he started telling me, we have this weapon, and we've had it for a while, that it's about the size of a tank. We would go and drop it somewhere, and the way he put it, it would capture 1,000 hearts and control their emotions to the point where they would just give up. And I said, really? That's crazy. And he says, you remember Iraq? And it's something my brain shot back to when we actually went into Iraq, how so many of the Iraqi soldiers just gave up without a fight. Do you remember that? They just gave up. Whole battalions were just, we quit. We're not in this. And I wondered, and I asked him, I said, did y'all use it then? He goes, yeah, we use it then. We use it, now we use it for riots, he said. It's used for riots. We'll drop this thing in.
They should have used it a little more up in Minnesota, but we won't get into that.
Yeah, right. He said that it's that weapon and a lot of the other weapons they're using, it's not from Earth. They're alien technology. This is basically him saying, excuse me, sorry about that. He's basically saying that they have other technology, and he straight out said it's alien stuff, man. We're using alien technology now. It's high tech. You would not believe what we have.
Just reverse engineering everything.
Yep.
Right. They're getting to the point where they actually know what they're doing with it.
Right.
So I'm driving him up to drop him off. Right. He gets out. As he's getting out, he goes, I'm probably never going to see you again. So I just want to tell you, Project Bluebeam is real. And then he left. And I was like freaking out. I was like, what the hell? Did this guy know I just did a show on this? What is going on, man? Is this guy supposed to scare me? Is he sent to scare me, or is he actually being serious? It was the weirdest experience.
I mean, you got 80,000 followers, so there's 80,000 people you can influence. So
that's true. But wow, I mean, that really, it shook me. I was like, wow, is this guy really sharing truthful stuff? Is he being honest with me?
Right.
You never can tell.
Dave, I'd love for you to come on again. We didn't get to talk about your parallel universe and all the other stuff.
Oh yeah, definitely we can talk about it.
Yeah,
for sure.
Let's have you come back on sometime. I'd love to have you back on.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey guys,
So,
this has been fantastic. I really appreciate the time.
Hey, I appreciate you. Yeah, it was sometimes we have a hard time getting through an hour with a guest, it's time to it's like pulling teeth. I'm sure you've been there. But you were great. It was awesome. Like I said,
Thank you.
Russ almost is passing out from his lack of food.
Oh, he's an hour and 20 minutes. That man needs to eat.
I feel my blood sugar going down. I'm sure it's
All right, David. I appreciate it, man. It was awesome. Down the rabbit hole on Insta. I'm sure YouTube. What do you got?
I'm just about to start YouTube. It's Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, Threads, and hopefully soon YouTube. Very soon.
Okay.
And I also have subscriptions on Instagram. So if you want to go ahead and join, that's one way you can support me. Also, One Nothing podcast. I'm the co-host on that.
Okay.
And we're doing pretty good right now. So definitely go check it out.
Okay. As I would assume that's on all your Apple and Spotify podcasts.
We're on everything. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. One Nothing. Okay. If you email me or hit that in your DMs, I can post it on the show notes so people.
Absolutely. All right. Cool.
All right, man. All right, David.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you,
man.
All right, thanks. All right. That was very interesting. That was fun, actually. I enjoyed that.
You right up your rabbit hole. It was right down your.
I was like tinfoil hat alley, man. All right. The Bigfoot doc.
Yes, West Virginia Bigfoot on Facebook.
Yep. Wide Open Research at gmail.com. Wide Open Research on Insta.
Bigfoot on Twitter.
Yep. I don't do TikTok because it's a Chinese plan. So I do not do that. Anyway, I guess we're out of here, right?
Subscribe.
Yep.
Appreciate you pushing the button up there. Appreciate everybody listening.
Yep. We are out.